My name is Blake Calhoun. I'm a freelance filmmaker and YouTube creator. And during the pandemic, I had a Tuff Shed built in my backyard to use as a home studio. This series of videos shows how I did it and how you can too. This is it. Well, this is it for now. I will be, of course, getting this completely finished out. My plan is to do everything you would normally do in a finish out of a house or an apartment or whatever. One thing I did a little different in this Tuff Shed is I went with windows that slide up and down. Most Tuff Sheds have side-to-side windows. And the reason I did that is I'm going to be putting an AC unit in this shed. I went with the upgraded radiant barrier for the roof and the ceiling. This will really help make this more efficient when it comes to heating and cooling, as I am going to be putting a window unit air conditioning in here. And then during the winter, I'll have a small electric space heater. And so this is a nice upgrade if you're considering doing a shed like this for, well, really, even if you're trying to use it just as a traditional shed, or if you're turning it into a home office, I would recommend spending the extra money and getting this radiant barrier put in. One thing I did too is I went with upgraded floors. These are supposed to be more weather resistant and I believe just resistant to moisture and even insects. And so it's an upgrade that they recommended, and especially if you're going to be using the shed like I am in a more traditional office or studio type sense. Now, of course, I'm going to put new flooring over this. And so I'll be doing traditional floor in here, more than likely laminate type flooring. I think it was a good upgrade to do. Hey, it's Future Blake, and I'm recording this right now in the studio that you're watching being built. So that's a little bit meta, but I just wanted to say this is not a how-to video. This is highlights of everything I had done. I actually hired contractors to do the work, but I'm going to show the transformation from the shell of the shed to the complete finish out to this right behind me. And so first up is the electricity. Just got the wiring done in here. Got some Romex run across the ceiling. I'm going to have 3 low wattage LEDs there. And over here by the front door, I got a switch put in. One switch will be for a dimmer, and the other switch will be for this, which is a porch light. All right, so this is the porch light. I went with a very modern looking light, which I think is kind of cool. And then I've got one plug over here. And then on the opposite wall down here, I've got another plug or an outlet. This is the window that the air conditioning unit is going to be in, the window unit. Then over here is the quote-unquote utility closet. But before I get over there, I got to come over here and look at this first. This is a small box on the outside of the shed that brings the solar in. And so this wire is a 20-foot solar cable, or 2 cables, positive and a negative. That's 12 gauge wire, so we ran it through the wall. And it comes down here, and this attaches to the solar generator. These are NC4 connectors. And then right here, that is a spigot, that's my word, coming from the outside in, where I can plug in an extension cord and run off grid power. And it all ties into this outlet right here. And so the way this will work is solar generator will plug into this. It has a 2000 watt inverter on it, and then that will power the shed. Or I can plug in grid power, house power, from an extension cord and power the shed that way. So I have 2 ways to do it. I'll only use the grid power if the solar generator is low on power, meaning it's cloudy or rainy or it hasn't been able to charge. All right, so this is the outdoor receptacle. I'll be able to open this and plug in an extension cord. This is actually designed for an RV, and I got the idea off YouTube. I'd seen some people with sheds put these on the outside of their shed. And again, the grid power goes in here, and then it will connect inside and power the shed, or I could use it to charge the generator. And last but not least, this is the connection for the solar. It's got the MC4 connectors on top, and this goes inside to the shed. And so I'll run the cables off the roof here, the edge of the roof. The solar will be up on top of the roof up here. Cables will come down and connect into there. I hired contractors to do the bulk of the finish out work, and on day one they started with the insulation. All right, just a sneak peek at the work that's going on in here. They're putting in the insulation in the walls. Starting to get the ceiling in, actually. They're at lunch right now, so thought I'd poke my head in. I'm not filming as they're installing this, just to stay out of their way. Looks like they got most of it done. The echo is gone in here, which is good. It's going to make it be a lot better for the soundproofing. You got spray foam around the windows there, that's good. They used R13 on the walls and R19 on the ceiling. That mixed with the radiant barrier should do pretty well in here. And the guys are back today doing the sheetrock. They're at lunch, and so again, I don't want to disturb them while they're working, but I'll peek my head in here real quick and just take a look. They've done the ceiling and the far wall so far. One thing I noticed is they didn't leave holes for the wires for the lights in the ceiling, so I'll need to make sure that they are planning to add those in. All right, well, they just left for the day and they're making great progress. Looks like they pretty much have all the sheetrock in. Everything's cut out except for the ceiling, which I need to double check that they're gonna do that. I'm not 100% sure of the order that goes in. And so day 3 is a continuation of the sheetrock work. They're doing the tape and bed. Even though this is a fairly small room, fairly small shed, it took them the bulk of the day to finish this part of the job. Day 3 of the project is done. This is actually the next morning. They finished the tape and bedding, and it had to dry overnight, and they'll be back the next couple of days. It's the weekend right now. But it's actually starting to look like a real office in here. They've got the sheetrock around the windows there, the window edges, and then they'll put in a window sill. And they did drill the holes or cut the holes for the lights, which is good. I wasn't sure when they were gonna do that. I just wanted to make sure they were gonna do that. The Romex is up in the ceiling there. And then they left space, of course, for that little hole right there is for my solar wires. That's for the inlet. And that down there is one of the outlets, which will run the window unit, the AC unit. This is the light switch for the porch light, and also will control the ceiling lights. That little hole there is one of the lights. There's one, and then the other one's down there. Then here is the other plug by the other window. This will control some computer equipment. I'll have a desk right here. And then this will be closed, but these are the wires coming in from outside for the actual solar equipment. I left this box there just to use as a access panel, more or less, to the wires in case I ever need to change those out or if they go bad or whatever. But it's really starting to come together now. We're getting very close. All right, the texture's in here and now they're getting ready to paint. This was one part of the project I'd never had any experience with. And so the contractors asked me what kind of texture I wanted and I didn't know. Ultimately, they recommended orange peel and I liked it. Day 5 and we're now on to the painting. Paint color is obviously super subjective, and so I ended up going with a neutral gray. And at first I was afraid that I'd chosen a color that was too dark. But once it dried, it did lighten up. I also wasn't sure about the ceiling. I considered painting it gray, but we ended up going with a traditional white. And now I have the white on the ceiling. And they're cutting in the windowsills. And here's the floor I bought that's going in today. Just some laminate flooring. I went with the wider type boards, a hand scraped look. Got this from Home Depot. Pretty affordable actually. This was like under $1 per square foot. And then I spent a little bit extra on the underlay. This supposedly is good for sound control. Since I'm doing a studio, I know that really probably relates more to having 2 stories sound control beneath the floor, and then it has moisture protection. And so I thought that would be important being out in the shed. Although it's not really a shed, it's a home office really, but. This part was a pretty straightforward install. You got a rectangular room, and so there wasn't any tough cuts, maybe a little bit around the door entry, but other than that, this part of the process went pretty quickly and smoothly. And next up, they laid the actual laminate floor down, cut it to fit, and it was all a fairly quick process. Got the floors put in. Next thing you have to do is the trim. And the echo is back in here. It went away for a little while. I'll be putting down some rugs and I'll be doing some sound deadening in the ceiling too. And right here, I've got the baseboards and the trim that goes around the door. I went with, I don't know if this is MDF or some sort of fiberglass, but it's not traditional wood. And the nice thing is though, they are pre-painted, they're pre-finished, so no painting required. So I'm hoping this works out okay. They look nice and have a contemporary design, and I think it should work, but we'll see. The floors are in, the trim is in, and it's painted. And yeah, the trim worked. And so I think everything all put together looks really nice. The electricity is officially all wired up. We're now running the shed off solar. Lights are going. Got the generator over there in the corner, which we'll go to in just a second. Light switches are going. Got an outdoor porch light. And then the indoor lights. Over here is the Blue Eddy AC200. This is what's powering the shed right now. I've got my solar input coming from outside, and then the AC coming out of the generator goes here, and this is actually an inlet, and so this is powering the shed. But everything is now finished out. I've got a smoke detector up here. The painting, of course, is all done. The windowsills are done. The trim, everything's finished out. I've started to put a couple of rugs in here. It's very bouncy and echoey. I am going to put some sound panels to help deaden it in here. This side of the room will be the desk and where I do tabletop stuff. This side of the room is going to be more storage. I will have a chair over there, but my gear will be stored over here. So I'll be moving all my gear and furniture in here in the near future, but this is now finally, after many months, turning into my new home studio. Be sure to check out the first 2 videos in this series if you haven't already to see how I built the shed. And in the next video I'll show how I installed the solar panels and connected the solar generator, aka power station, the Bluetti AC200. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.